Okay, friends, this is Mr. Place-Based Education here again. Remember, the way I think pedagogy works best is if your teacher or guru kind of breaks the ice, meaning opens the space for people to share their life stories. And you see how, in sharing your life story, you can also share things of general interest. Like you've got something you lived through, so you can be very experiential in your narration. You've got access to vivid memories. And at the same time, you can be sharing material that's of interest and useful to your listeners. It's even though it's about you, like there's a I guess I could say, a human interest way to take any story and keep it interesting. And actually, your listeners probably want to learn how to do that as a skill too. So I'm saying I have nothing against autobiography as part of your pedagogical technique, and I've said that a lot on this channel. Now my channel's anchored on YouTube, but I've been branching out into Rumble. This is where I used to live, by the way, as a child in Portland, Oregon. It's a pretty nice looking house, isn't it? And it's changed quite a bit. Things have grown up a lot because I was there in the 1960s as like a first and second grader. And then our family moved to Italy, and I lived in Rome while my dad worked for Libya, the government of Libya. I'm looking for my picture of where my apartment was vis a vis, looking from the back of St. Peter's. I used to climb up there in the cupola all the time. That's a really fun place. These are Google Earth pictures, right? So snapshots. Encourage you because you're going to be a guru, like let's say, and you want to do your life story too. So you don't have to wait till your dotage or whatever to make your scrapbook, because what we do these days is encourage you through Facebook or whatever. Start scrapbooking your life and start selfies and start chronicling yourself as you go. And this guy, Buckminster Fuller, was really good at doing that. He self chronicled a whole lot. And I'm talking about, okay, so two books that I want to sort of focus on here. Close my door here. There's some kind of lawnmower out in the back or chainsaw, who knows. These two books, right? I'm going to talk about these and why they belong together. That's the main point of this video, actually. And I'll just cut right to it. What Bucky Fuller's trying to give us through his work is affordability in terms of structures that protect us from the elements. I mean, you could say really the basics, right? But notice all this stone, all this heavy materials and stuff like that. And think about tents. Now think somewhere, by tents I mean T-E-N-T, not T-E-N-S-E. Like a tent city is becoming a common sight around Portland. And it's not quite, refugee housing. And yet these are refugees. They're refugees from, let's call it capitalism. But that brings me to this other book. And this guy was really into Occupy. And if you saw my recent video on Food Not Bombs and Occupy 2011, I had a front row seat in that. I was like right in the heart of the action there. So I like the fact that David Graeber, who unfortunately, he's going to be one of my gurus. He is one of my gurus, even though he's passed away of COVID. Maybe I'll meet Wengrow sometime or get to talk to him. But in any case, what I take from this book is it's not about two systems vying for control of the whole way of life thing. It's like either capitalism or socialism, These are artificial dualities, polarities that keep the rhetoric simple so people can have their debates, their melodramas, their fights. But when you get right down to it, there are so many possibilities that have already been tried, and they're not all failures or whatever. One of our failures is thinking that to be successful means to be immortal. Maybe in some eternal sense, yes, but when you're planning a community, it can be a scientific-minded one that's just going to swoop in on Great Slave Lake somewhere in Canada and test out that this anti-mosquito things work good, Like you can live mosquito free in your giant dome with your like cafeterias and your nice, it's a well appointed environment. It's college, it's like an expensive college lifestyle with internet and all this kind of stuff. You like living there. It's not a hardship for you. And yet you're doing science. You're studying Great Slave Lake or whatever. I hear that noise coming through now. This is going to maybe convince me to not talk as long, which is probably just as well. While we're here, Siobhan Roberts, King of Infinite Space, about Donald Coxeter. There's some good stuff in that book about Bucky Fuller and his relationship with Coxeter. So when you bring those two together, possibility and affordability, you've got a dynamite combination. And that's why I want you to hang out in this channel and learn about these things and think about them. Make your imagination go wild and see what you come up with, because I won't know till you do it. Now, Urbit is one of those things. I'm into Urbit because there's something called Martian math that I teach, and it's very alien. I use the word Martian in the sense of alien, and Urbit is quite alien. And in fact, in a recent screenshot, you'll see I get an NFT that proves I was there, basically, on this guy's planet. Like, all I have is a moon right now. And if you're a visiting moon, you can get something called Agora. And there it is, Imperceptible City, boarding pass. And you see, if you look closely, I can't make it any bigger, Earth, Mars there. So there's already some kind of like, it's Martian math in another shape. There's a language called Hoon. In fact, let's go search on Hoon. This is very interesting to me. Hoon is interesting, and the fact that there is a place on Earth called Hoon. If you remember in my opening, I talked about that we moved to Italy, and that's so my dad could work for Libya as a regional planner. He had a degree in that from the University of Chicago, and he'd started out as a planner for the city of Portland here, where I am now, but was always interested in doing regional planning around the world, which he ended up doing. And one of his first assignments was there. What do you see there? Hoon. Actually, that's a region. You see the region here. This book, if you flip it over, it's in Arabic. And he worked very closely with the Libyan government on this particular project for a number of years. And that's why we lived in Italy, so he could do that. But connecting to that is this language of the Urbit world, which is new, called Hoon. And here I'm doing a crystal ball numbers in the Hoon language, which I have forgotten. So I went through a Hoon phase for a while, some years ago, and then my computer got too full, and now I'm back to it. I'm being advised by a subgenius, and I feel like, I am a subgenius. I'm a genius only in short seconds or less. Glimpses of genius is what Bucky also talks about a lot. It's like a genius is not something you are. You're a sub-genius, but every so often you kind of like a dolphin jumping out of the ocean. If it's at a show, maybe jumping through a hoop of some kinds. But just a dolphin in the wilds is my preferred picture. By the way, I'm an alumnus of Princeton University, and I studied philosophy under some big names there, like philosophy. Rorty and Kaufman, but others too. Like, those are two I talk about the most. For good reason, because Rorty's into pragmatism, and is Fuller a pragmatist in the philosophy sense? Where do we put him? Because his philosophy is catching on as something we're studying, and partly because it's becoming more and more accessible over time as those who do study it kind of crack it open more and more for the next generation. So you'll be in on the ground floor if you want to call this Volume 6. It's a a space filler, I'm sorry. If you put a sphere inside each one, it'll touch 12 neighbors. And that's an important lattice regardless of whether you're into Bucky or not. So it will help you spread your knowledge in science to follow this material. So there it is, a set of exciting possibilities for affordable community formation in connection with your American heritage, if you want to call it that, but your human heritage in the form of a great philosophy, another great philosophy, taking its place among the others. And I'm one of the teachers, and welcome.